Welcome to Pixel Focus, the podcast where we explore the positive connection between ADHD and video games, how they impact our lives, and the way we play. My name, of course, is Ryan. I am joined today by my dear friend Tristan, who brings personal experience with ADHD to the table. We're here to explore what life looks like with the subjects and why video games might be more than just a distraction. Thank you so much for joining me today, Tristan.
No problem, man.
So for those that might not be familiar, could you give just like a brief little summary about yourself? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
My name's Tristan Holovacko. I'm 29 years old. I live in California and I'm an engineer technician.
Could you share with me your experience with ADHD and maybe its connection to video games in your life?
I was diagnosed with ADHD pretty early on in my life, probably around first or second grade, because the issues that it was causing were pretty evident. I had a hard time focusing on anything in class, even when I really tried. Things that came easily to other children didn't really come that easy to me. If it wasn't something I was severely interested in, I had a hard time focusing on it. I was diagnosed probably around second grade, like officially, and they gave me a medication. First, they tried Adderall, and that didn't really go too well. The symptoms affected me a little too much. I remember hyperventilating and having hot flashes, so they took me off of that pretty quick, put me on something a little less extreme. I can't remember what it was called. It was basically a smaller dose or maybe a different medicine that had a less effect, and that ended up actually helping me a lot. But I had to almost rely on that for a while. Later in my life, at the behest of my parents, I started to kind of wean myself off of that medication, and that kind of forced me to confront the complexities of having ADHD on a day-to-day basis. I had to, on a day-to-day basis, kind of grapple with how difficult it was for me to handle ADHD and its effects. I think the biggest challenge with it was just learning that I couldn't do what other kids did and just overcome it in a normal, easy way or just try harder. It's hard to pull yourself up by your bootstraps when you have an actual medical condition that prevents you from doing the things you know you should be doing.
And when it came to video games, did you feel there was any sort of connection between your ADHD and the video games? Like, did it impact your day-to-day life, video games? And did you feel like there was that reliance on it because of ADHD?
I don't think it was a reliance. I think video games provide something kind of fundamental to people with ADHD that I didn't realize until I looked back on it later. Like if I look back on the classes that I was into at school, right? I was terrible with math and science because their applications are more kind of long term. You're told as a kid, oh, math will become important for all sorts of jobs, but we got to teach you the basic math before you can do any of that. So instead of that instant feedback, you kind of got this. It was a long term thing. And I really struggle with long term goals, like really hard. I've struggled with losing weight because you don't see the results instantly. You got to wait for it, and stuff like that is really difficult. The great thing about video games is that you press a button and you get instant feedback. It's like catnip for people with ADHD. It's an instant gratification. That's probably why, everybody with ADHD I met, this doesn't only apply to them, but everyone is also glued to their cell phones because you like tap something. I have this friend with ADHD who's like, uh, she does TikToks. I mean, and it's just instant, It's that kind of stuff is instant gratification. And I don't know, video games sort of like my favorite subjects are history and English because you get instant gratification for that. It's a story, you read a book, you read the book, you get the story like instantly. There's no delay. You instantly see why it's interesting. You don't have to wait.
Right.
Same thing with video games.
Um, on the topic of games, and since we talk about ADHD a lot and like what the effect is between the two, what type of games do you feel yourself mostly drawn to, and if you do relate that to ADHD or more if it's just self-interest.
I think the one that I gravitated to the quickest was platformers, that kind of thing, because again, it's that instant feedback as opposed to something like an adventure game or a role playing game where things kind of slow down and it's a little more strategic. With a platformer, it's you press a button, you jump, the action is moment to moment. It's pretty addicting for me, and I wouldn't put it past myself to attribute that to ADHD, to be honest.
Do you find that video games affect your focus differently than other activities? Like, could you go more into specifics, like how the difference between you focusing on playing video games and you maybe doing like your day-to-days are?
I guess it really depends on the task. Like I said, I've been off of the medication that I had when I was a kid for a very long time, and so I've kind of adapted to the point where I have to push past my ADHD to do day-to-day things, and I've gotten better at it. Like it's not an unlivable condition. You can live with it. Just doing day-to-day tasks that I need to get done, like, oh, I need to go to the store, I need to do this, I need to do that. Sometimes I it's kind of funny to say, but sometimes I incentivize myself. Oh, I got to go to the store and get something important. Well, I got to get myself a soda or something to incentivize me to go out and do it. Right? I go out and buy something for myself to be like, all right, you got out of the house, you did what you were supposed to do. I know you didn't want to do it. Here's a treat, and it's like with video games, I don't really have to do that because playing the video game is the treat. It's easy to focus on that. It's almost effortless, which is why it's become such a huge hobby for me, is because it's something I enjoy doing and something that doesn't really, I don't have to work around the way I am. It's kind of just intuitive.
And on that topic, of course, of like enjoyment, like what video games provide you, could you talk about how you feel video games impact your emotions or your mood?
When you live with ADHD or any kind of condition, it's kind of hard to accept that you're different from other people or that you won't be able to do certain things as easy as some other people. And I know this is said about video games all the time, but like they provide a sort of escape, right? You spend your whole life being told like, why aren't you paying attention to this, why aren't you doing this the way I showed you, why, and yeah, the doctor tells you that it's because your brain is wired differently than other people, but what's great about video games is that it's kind of an escape from that. If you have ADHD, you inherently enjoy doing video games, and so when you get that positive feedback from video games, it feels good. Maybe for some people, I don't know if I'd say it did it for me, but for some people it kind of fills a hole, maybe fills a role that's missing in your life, where someone praises you for the things that you like doing instead of saying, how, why are you different,
Mhm.
I think that's one of the emotional cruxes of how it feels. I don't think I really have that problem now, but I think when I was younger I definitely felt that, because you don't it takes a little longer for you to understand why people say things to you and what the situation is when you're a kid as opposed to when you're a grown man.
Video games, as we talk, have had a significant impact, I think, on your life from what I'm understanding.
Yeah.
Can you find any examples of them helping you to develop skills or like confidence or any sort of social benefits from playing video games?
Well, yeah, I think the biggest thing is that it's always I don't know if it might be because of ADHD, at least partially, but I always had a trouble at an early age trying to relate with other kids and making friends. I mean, I guess a lot of people have to deal with that, but one of the great things that has actually helped is that playing games with other people has really helped me kind of bridge that gap. I used to be a lot more of an introvert, and to an extent I still am, but it's a lot better now than it used to be, and I can attribute a lot of that to playing my Nintendo DS on the bus with other kids, or like bringing them over to my house and we play some games. I mean, it's any kind of social activity like that would would especially have a positive impact on my life, and I think video games have definitely done that, which is probably why they have so much staying power with me.
We talk a lot about the positives, but of course, no conversation like this can go without talking about the possible negatives. So, have you ever felt like video games may have played a negative role when tied to your diagnosis of ADHD?
Honestly, it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. Honestly, sometimes I would not want to do my schoolwork or whatever because obviously it's not just ADHD, but that's a big part of it, right? You
Hmm.
yeah, I'm still struggling in the classes, and I was still having a hard time focusing on the work, and it just frustrates the hell out of you. So if you go through like that, and I'm using a lot of examples from childhood because a lot of this was the most tumultuous time was developmental, like when I was a kid. So I would just play video games instead of doing the things I had to do, and it was a struggle for a while to to kind of buckle down and grapple with the fact that, hey, I need to get this important stuff done, and I can't just use all of my interests as a distraction in order to do it. And I eventually got the hang of it, but it was pretty rough, especially middle school, early high school, going through puberty.
Hmm.
Life was going through changes, and I used video games almost like a crutch to kind of avoid learning to work around my ADHD and do the work that I needed to do. And I'm glad I did. It helped me eventually. But yeah, it was a whole process, and video games weren't always a help. Sometimes they were a hindrance.
Do you, and I mean this topic can be anywhere from childhood or even like right now. Do you set yourself limits when it comes to playing video games? Like how do you set those limits and why?
Oh yeah, I mean, I had to learn from pretty early on, and my parents were very patient, very very patient with teaching me how to kind of everything in moderation. When you're a kid, you wish everything could be fun and games, especially when you have a condition where your interests you can pay attention, and when it doesn't interest you, you're just not there. Um, but yeah, I'd say I learned to kind of take control of my inclination to just, you know, abandon anything that doesn't interest me because I understand that things that aren't interest me are still important pretty often. So as far as video games go, I've definitely I mean, I work pretty long hours in my job, and so it's if I didn't know how to, you know, kind of manage my time well as far as video games are concerned, I wouldn't even be able to hold this job very well.
Right.
I it's a whole it was mostly in my childhood just learning how to everything in moderation, right? So
Hmm.
just kind of manage my time.
Do you believe, and I mean this one might be a bit of a difficult one to kind of tie together, but it is still an important question. Do you believe that video games have helped you better understand not only yourself, but also your ADHD?
Yeah, I would definitely say at the very least they helped me understand myself. I mean how I met my girlfriend, how I made almost all of my close friends. So I can't say that it hasn't had a massive impact on my life. And honestly, my ADHD is just part of who I am at this point. So I think that all really comes together there. No, that pretty much sums it up, man. I mean, that's how I pretty much met all the important people in my life, other than my family, obviously.
Right.
And without that, I don't know who or what I'd be right now. It's a pretty defining aspect of my life.
If you could think of, because you've been through your fair share of playing video games, you have a massive library behind you of video games that you played both as a child and within your adult years. Just based off of an assumption or opinion that you have, if you could ideally think of a game, maybe one that you played, or maybe you could think of an example in the future of a game that would tailor to individuals with ADHD, what is an example in your mind of what that video game might look like? It could be an example of a game you've already played.
Maybe not so on the mechanical level of ADHD, but maybe emotionally. I can just speak from my experience. I don't know about other people, but I talk about the game a lot. Zelda Ocarina of Time. So like it's a story about this kid whose body changes into an adult early, but he still kind of feels like a kid on the inside, and he has to deal with all of these real life difficulties. And you know, when I was a kid, I just thought the game was cool, but the older I get and the more I look back on it, that kind of out of body experience, like you're different from everybody else, is pretty poignant. Like in the game, there's this forest of children that he grows up in, and the children are sort of like the kids from Peter Pan. You know, they're kids forever and they never grow up.
Hmm.
But your character is different from them. He comes from the outside and nobody knows it until in the future when he gets older. He comes back and they're still all kids and he's an adult, and they all treat him like a stranger and wonder when that kid they used to know is coming back. And I don't know, it's just as a kid who struggled so much with focusing and that kind of thing, when so many other kids seem to do it so effortlessly, or the ones that did it because they chose not to, and it didn't have anything to do with any kind of you know, medical condition or whatever they had. It kind of helps me come to grasp with it. And because the game has so many positive subliminal things to say about that main character, and despite all of his differences, makes it a game that kind of helps me continuously kind of come to terms with the person I am and all of the things that I have gone through to get to this point in my life.
So you're talking more on the because ADHD obviously, and I can connect to that idea too, that ADHD not only creates this sense of isolation sometimes when you're a kid, because when it comes to others, you can't relate to being able to focus nearly as good as them, or why am I different kind of thing. And so that aspect of the video game definitely helped elevate that lack of confidence there, or maybe even helped you connect more to the character within the game, correct?
Yeah, I mean, and I've talked a lot about like my experience as a kid, but honestly, as an adult, it felt like I had missed out on some of the important developmental milestones as a kid. And you know, I don't blame my parents for it. They did the best they could. And sometimes like I felt too reliant on my family for things. My parents were pretty protective as a kid. And my inclination, the instant gratification part of my brain told me to just, you know, oh, let your parents take care of it, let your parents take care of it, that kind of thing. And that's not really good thing to be thinking when you're around 18 and you're supposed to be like out on your own, right?
Hmm.
Um, it was actually my decision to go into the military that kind of pushed me out there at that point in my life. And it was only making the decisions for myself and kind of pushing against my natural inclinations that got me to the point where I like I'm much better now. I think I'm much better for it. And so when I look at this game about a man with a kid's soul trapped in his body looking at the adult world and trying to come to grips with it, I sympathize with that a lot. Honestly, the game really clicks with me on that level. I appreciate it even more now than I did when I was a kid.
We have a last question, and this one I feel is most important, especially for someone that can give a lot of takeaway from dealing with these personal experiences and tackling the two subjects that we talk about. What advice would you give to others, maybe even parents, about using video games to tackle ADHD?
As far as parents go, I would just say, you know, support your kids' interests. Um, Obviously, everything in moderation. Don't just let your kid play video games forever and not do any work or like it's important. An important step for your development is finding a hobby that you enjoy, I think. And I think that kind of feeling of self-actualization. As far as people who are going through ADHD right now, especially young people, I would just say stick with it. Don't quit. Keep trying to learn more about yourself and how your brain works, and kind of work with it instead of against it, and you'll turn out all right.
Thank you so much for answering those questions. I know a lot of those were personal, and I'm very happy that I was able to get this time with you to sort of share more stories and perspectives, not even just my own, of course, but to not only talk about the research experience, but also stories with personal experiences, people that don't may not know the research, but can definitely talk about what their life experiences are dealing with this medical condition, you know?
Yeah, no problem, man.
Of course, huge thanks to Tristan for sharing his story and his perspective on the two subjects, ADHD and video games. Through this episode, there was a lot of takeaway, definitely. This was the first episode where we talk about personal experiences. I'm sure I'll have more in the future. Of course, if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to follow and share it with someone you feel might benefit from it. There are other interviews you can look forward to that are linked to my social media and many other platforms. And if this topic interests you or you feel you have your own story to share, feel free to email me or contact me on my socials. They will be linked in the video as well as in some of the other sections. Once more, thank you, Tristan. This has been Pixel Focus, where Focus meets play. Thank you so much. And until next time, take care. Thanks for watching the Pixel Focus podcast. If you enjoyed that episode, please consider liking and subscribing for more content like this. Be sure to check out our socials and other podcast episodes.